Hi guys, welcome to Helixx, and we've got a new part of the show. It's interviewer developer time. And on today's show, we've got the developer from Carbon Studios, and he's got a fantastic new game out. It's called The Wizards. So welcome to the show, Paul.
Hello guys, thank you for having me here.
And we've got Eden with us as well. How are you today, Eden?
I'm quite good. I'm excited to interview Paul here.
Excellent. Right, before we get into asking the important questions, let's have a look at the trailer for the game to get you guys excited. Well, there we go. Welcome to the show, Paul. And by the looks of that trailer, we've got a really, really exciting game coming up. So can you tell us a bit about the story of the game?
Yeah, so in the game, you as a player start as a young magician or someone who would like to become a magician, basically. And you visit a wizard in his tower, the master wizard, and the one you'd like to learn from, how to cast spells, etc. And soon you realize that there's something really important going on, and just like in many other fantasy games, very soon it turns out that the fate of the whole world lays in your hands, basically. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, but the twist is here that the game's about traveling in time. So you have to travel back in time to the and stop the invasion that already happened like long time ago, But if you don't do it then in the past, then your present will change. So we've decided to implement to go for the traveling in time to explain why it is possible to finish each stage of the game many times. So you can do it because you travel back in time. So every time you start the stage, you basically travel back in time. So you do not like break the rules of the game world there.
Fantastic. So there's a lot of pressure on us to save the world.
Basically.
I saw that The Wizards won the Best Indie Game Award at Casual Connect Asia this year and was nominated in several other categories too. What made you think your game made stand out above even like of the entries, even including Sorrento VR?
Oh, when it comes to Sorrento VR, I think that at the time the awards happened, we've been on Casual Connect, Sorrento was a definitely much better game than ours. When you would compare just the build we had at that moment and the moment that what Sorrento was doing there, and frankly, I have to say that I think it's a really amazing game, and I was expecting Sorrento to win the prize. I was, I was of course very happy, but also a little bit. I have a feeling that it wasn't. Maybe if you just compare the builds of our games, the game was much better. But I think that the jury decided to award our game based rather on the promise of the game. So than what it was at that moment. So I think that because shooting enemies with guns or killing them with blades, swords, and etc. is something that's really cool. But it's probably not a dream, like a childhood dream of a lot of people. And I think that because when you think about like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, or other like it's like becoming a wizard. It's something just like really deep in the like a pop culture. So I think that's something that the jury simply liked, and they rewarded that.
I think that's a very fair comment. I mean, Sorrento VR and The Wizards, I've played both of them. They're both brilliant games, I think. I suppose The Wizards, you could actually say it does have a lot of promise and does have a lot of that sort of fantasy feeling to it, as compared to Sorrento, which there are a few sort of similar games with that theme. Both are brilliant games, though.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Just like saying Sorrento and The Wizards in one sentence is... And not saying that these games are brilliant. I'm really happy with that, because I really admired the guys who made Sorrento.
And this is Carbon Studios' second VR game. Can you tell us what lessons you learned from the Helixx VR and how that experience has made The Wizards better?
Yeah, so I think that the most important lesson we've learned is that when you make a VR game, or basically any video game, you have to reach to the players and ask for their feedback as soon as possible. And this may sound like something that everybody says, but it's actually true. So with Helixx VR, we had no no alpha tests, no beta tests, no early access. And with the Wizards, we decided to go the other way, with like testing it very early, asking players what they would like to get in the game, what's working, what's not. And you know, like before the Wizards, when I saw a early access game, every developer says that they are doing it to get feedback from the players, implement their ideas, etc. And right now, I know that these developers, they actually write, and it's something that actually is really important, especially with VR. When you know, like we are like the you know, like casting spells in VR. Like in many VR games, developers decide to do something that's like pretty, like really unique, something that has never been done before. So you cannot be sure that the idea is good if you do not test it with the players. So with Helixx VR, 80% up to 90% of bad reviews we got with this game on Steam was about motion sickness. People simply got sick, and that was the main problem with the game. And it took us 6 weeks to implement teleportation, because firstly, at the beginning you only had like a free movement in the game, and after 6 weeks it was already too late. We still have like a mixed reviews. We got like some rather not reviews from the media we are not happy with it. And it's, of course, it's not like the game was perfect, but we've learned a lot making the game, but also learned about how to cope with not just, I said, like getting to players and asking them what they think about the game.
Yeah, I think feedback is really important from the players, and we do play a lot of alpha games and a lot of beta games for a lot of developers, and we find that obviously the feedback is so important to make. You don't realise you put your heart and soul into a game, and then we come along and we trash it by saying, oh, this is not good and that's not good. But it needs that, because obviously we're the guys that are paying for it at the end of the day. So it's nice that you guys listen to us and you change things, and that's what I like about early access.
Yeah. Our plan is for the early access to like really like gather as much feedback as we can and really listen to it and react to the feedback. So, you know, because the thing you said that we are not the best one to judge the game, especially when it comes to casting spells. You do it in the Wizards with hand gestures. So for us, casting spells in the Wizards is like a piece of cake. Bread and butter, no problem with not bread and butter, but butter smooth, like no problem with doing it. But then we've started testing, and it turned out that there are spells that are just almost impossible to cast for somebody who have not tried it before. And actually it's a problem with the game, because we think that we don't want it to make the casting spells too easy. Just like, for instance, the game could learn the gestures of the players, for instance. But we've decided that we want to have some very like strict rules about how to cast spells, because we want players to master the spells. So it's just like, not that you buy an upgrade and this is the way you progress. You really, the more time you spend, the easier it becomes to cast spells. But if there's for instance, a YouTuber who have like 15 minutes with the game, and he, you know, he can have problems with that. But I hope that they won't. We'll see like soon.
So it's been mentioned that obviously the game is in early access at the moment, and you're going to be adding new regions into the game. can you tell us about how many you're going to be adding and what type of regions are we going to be looking forward to coming? So a nice little exclusive for us at Helixx, what's going to happen?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing we'd like to add after early access, it's arcade mode. So the mode that when you have like time trails and endless battles on the arenas, and these arenas going to be like entirely new maps. So we start with the new map for the arcade mode. And then we would like to implement 2 new regions to the game. The first will be actually it will be on the desert. This already decided, and we already have like the it's not finished yet, but we have the map of the game for the first region. And then we'll have the 4th region, and we have some ideas about it, but we probably would like to ask players about what they think. Maybe I can promise that we'll do like a space or something, or like, I don't know. There are things that would be quite difficult, but we'd like to stick. We have one idea for it, and we are going to ask players about it, but a little bit later.
And I'm really enjoying the spellcasting of the game. Like, for instance, where you just flick your hand like that, and you've got a fireball.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about what you actually do in the development to capture those, to make it so that we, the player, can do it? What is it like actually creating the system to do that?
Yeah, so the thing is that we've used, it's not a secret that we've used a third-party plugin for Unreal Engine that allowed us to record the gesture and then make the game try to recognize if something someone's doing is similar to the gesture we recorded before. So we've came up with the ideas for the spells, the gestures that can make you cast a spell or then throw it or somehow interact with the spells. And we can record actually anything we want, and then just give players the instruction how to cast it, and then they can try to reproduce the gesture. So basically, the thing here is, in order to make it work. So Eden, you told me yesterday or like 2 days ago that you have problem with one spell in the game because it's not like you have problem with casting the spells. So I asked our designer to just simply record more gesture traces for this spell. So I hope it should be fine right now. So because of this, if players have an idea for a spell, just like for how to cast a certain spell, it won't be that difficult to implement in the future. And one funny thing I can say about casting spells in the Wizards, we had to make casting spells at some way using them spells easier than in the real world, because when you have a fireball, for instance, this simple spell when you make a twist with your hand and then you can just throw it, we had to make throwing in the Wizards a little bit easier than in real life, because in real life, if something's like 20 meters from you, you probably won't, like, you have to like try many times to hit it with a stone or something. And in the Wizards, you are a master wizard. You have like a powerful magician, so it have to be a little bit easier, as you can probably imagine.
Yes, it probably is much easier in life. I know earlier on, I think in the 7th stage, I hit a minecart with a fireball about 20 times in a row without missing once. So
yeah,
it's much easier.
Yeah.
We all know that VR is a really, really tiny area at the moment, and it is growing. But
yeah,
what made you and your studio go into VR development rather than standard PC development?
Yeah, so our studio, actually the VR was something that made us create the company. So the founders of my company, they started in different company, and then one of our founders got he supported Oculus DK1 on Kickstarter, and then when he got this headset, he said like it's something I want to do. So he tried to so he wanted to like develop for VR very, very much. So that's why he decided to start his own company, Carbon Studio. So we started with some, like, of course, simple proofs of concepts, etc. And then with DK2, we started like full-time development of Helixx VR, but at that time there were like no motion controllers, there was no Vive on the horizon. So right now it's obvious that we decided, when we got with Oculus Touch and HTC Vive, it was obvious that with the second game, Carbon Studio have to like use motion controllers. But if you ask, why do we use VR, like make VR games? Is it like, it's basically about how amazing it is to create something that's like totally new, totally unique. Like the moment that when you develop something and you cannot Google something out, and you don't know if something will really work because no one have ever tried it before. Maybe I don't like to say how amazing we are. I think like most VR devs do it, and they do it because how amazing it is. So with Helixx VR, we had like gravity ramps, so you can move on walls and ceiling, and you can shrink and grow just like in Alice Adventures in the Wonderland. So I'm not sure if there was any VR game at that moment that had something like this. And also have games like Super Hot with a time that freezes. Other amazing ideas. And the feeling of doing it. If you can afford it, I mean, like, we got some support from the investor, we had a publisher for Helixx VR. So of course it's not easy with a such small user base to make things like going, like pay like all the developers each month. But if you can get enough support or can sell enough copies, it's just something cool to do, really cool.
Excellent. So being a developer, and obviously you see lots and lots of games coming out on the market, because we know that HTC and the indie side of things, they're bringing out games, 20 games a week or something like that. What is your favourite game, apart from your own games that you brought out, what is your favourite game in VR at the moment?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's definitely Lone Echo and Echo Arena. I think it's it could be easy to predict this answer. Because it's like it's pushed VR forward. It's definitely something totally different. Yeah, these guys made like they like figured out so many things, just like arms and movement. There's like no motion sickness, even though you just float in space. It's just unbelievable. So, but the first game that really like made me believe, or maybe not believe, but the game that like made me feel like I have to show it to everybody else. It was Super Hot. So the game I mentioned already. Yeah. Just like, it was playing the game is just, and the game is right now out also for HTC Vive, and I guess also PSVR. Right now,
this week it came out for PSVR.
Yeah. So it's really, I really like it because the game is really awesome, and I really love Rec Room when it comes to social experiences. That's my favorite one.
Excellent.
I've been lucky enough to play the pre-release version of the game for a few hours. The narrative and the gameplay are particularly good. We have found that left-handed players may have issues, but we've been assured that a solution is on the way during early access. Stay tuned for the full review.
Excellent. And that's the end of the show. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much, Paul, for attending.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Okay, guys, remember, you can win a copy of this game. We're giving it away this week. Just go to our YouTube channel, enter the competition, or go to our Facebook page and enter the competition. Don't forget, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, tweet us on Twitter. That's all. Let's have a look at the full review of this game.
Hello, this is Eden with Helixx VR. Today I'll be reviewing The Wizards. As a disclaimer, this review is based on a pre-release version. The Wizards is a fantasy adventure game for the HTC Vive and Oculus Rift by Carbon Studios. It currently has 2 regions with 4 stages in each, so a total of 8 stages, not including the introduction. In early access they plan to add 2 more regions to the story, a desert region and a fort region. There are also plans to add an arcade mode with its own map. Arcade mode will focus on spell combat. I would estimate that a normal playthrough of the current content would take 3 hours if only playing each level is completed and then progressing, but there is more to do, so playtime will likely be longer. I'm told that the speedrun record is currently 75 minutes, so that's your target to beat. I've been playing the game for the past week, and one of the strongest points is the gameplay. Over the time I've played, I've unlocked 6 spells so far: Fireball, Frostbow, Shield, Arcane Missile, Lightning, and Pyrosphere. The motion for each spell is very unique, and most are fairly easy to use in most cases after some practice. Part of the concept of the game is that you are learning to become a Master Wizard, so it really adds to the experience that you may be slow at first, or occasionally fail a spell, but grow to the point where you can actually reliably and quickly throw a fireball at one enemy, then shoot lightning at the next without missing a beat. There is a tutorial area specifically for learning and practicing the spells, and I do recommend that players watch the movement carefully. When I first learned Fireball, I failed it maybe a quarter of the time until I went back and saw that I was actually missing a little flick. After noticing that, I could do it consistently. As you gain points, you can upgrade the spells. Each spell has 2 upgrades. For example, you could add a burn effect to your Fireball to give the enemy lingering damage, and then add a second upgrade to have the option to charge the spell. Other effects include slowing enemies down, reflecting projectiles back at the enemy, and chaining lightning between enemies. You can reset and redistribute these points as needed. The game is teleportation only, which is not everyone's cup of tea, but I find it works well in this game. You can dodge projectiles physically as well as blocking with your shield spell, but more often if you want to dodge, you'll find yourself teleporting to another pad. The game has a good amount of replayability, partially due to fate cards. You can choose up to 2 cards to act as modifiers, such as make the enemy faster or weaker. You can also receive a different amount of points depending on how well you do in a level, so you may find yourself going back to previous levels to try and do better to get what you need to upgrade your skills. There are a lot of positive points to this game. One of them is the narrative. As you progress through this game, you'll be guided by the voice of a wizard whose time has passed. The narrator really sets the scene well and explains the world and the story in an interesting way. The voice itself fits perfectly to the role, which helps keep you immersed, and they have a few amusing quips along the way. The game is graphically impressive. There are some minor issues, such as text not being clear as it could be, as is common in many VR games. The price of the game is quite reasonable for the amount of content. I'm personally at 4 hours in as I write this, and I still have more I want to do. Some parts of the environment are destructible, both parts which are intended to be destroyed as part of the story, and objects laying around the world. I found this to be a nice touch. The motion controls for the spells I've already talked about. They were all great, except possibly one, which I'll speak about later. The replayability, which I've already gone into, is definitely a plus. One impressive feature is that the game has a full set of graphics and audio options, as well as free save profiles. As a final point, the developers seem very open to feedback and using it to shape the game. They also have a lot of additional content planned. There are some negatives to the game, but they're all fairly minor or being worked on. One of the Helixx VR team members had difficulty because he is left-handed. Left-hand support is due to come in the early access period, but isn't implemented yet. I found that the Arcane Missile spell is reliable in making big motions, but not so much as small motions. The devs are apparently recording more motions for it after feedback about it. To choose a level, you load an item into a slot. There have been issues doing this on occasion. I found that throwing the item into the slot from the top right works consistently, but it should automatically be drawn to it. I'm told that they are trying to correct the issue. To conclude the review, The Wizards is a great game. Even in the pre-release state, it doesn't feel like the standard, very incomplete early access title, except that we're obviously not at the end of the story after those 8 stages. There are some minor negatives, but they're easily outweighed by the much stronger positives. The current state of the game is already better than many complete games, and a lot more is promised for the future, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. If you've not seen it yet, we've also done an interview with PG from Carbon Studios about this game. Once again, this was Eden from Helixx VR. If you enjoyed, please remember to like and subscribe.